Well, good evening, and thank you for tuning in online tonight to our Wednesday night broadcast at Victory. We're so thankful for each and every one of you that tunes in for all our services, whether it be on Sundays or Wednesdays. We're just very, very thankful for that. One of the things that we strive to do here is to develop a deeper walk with the Lord as well as deeper connections with one another. And we do that through groups, small group settings that meet here on campus. And we would love for you to be a part of these groups if you aren't already. We have multiple times that they meet, Sundays and on Wednesdays. Tonight, right after we hear from some special music from our worship team, we're going to move into one of those groups and let you hear and experience the teaching. We hope and trust it's a blessing to you tonight. Thank you so much again for being here this evening.
When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain move. As I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you.
So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you.
When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty.
Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
When all I see is the cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you.
Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You believe that this morning? Let's sing that together. Lift his name up this morning from your hearts.
Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God.
Lift your voice.
Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow,
Alrighty, and so again, good to see you today. And I was just telling you, I had heard from a couple people already this week about their group leaders and how much they're enjoying their small groups. And some of it has been on Sunday morning, some of it's been on Wednesday night, some of it was on Wednesday. Sunday mornings or Wednesday nights is the ones that I heard from, and that's always encouraging when the people are saying, "Man, I really like." My group. Had somebody text me a Sunday afternoon and said, "Hey, can I get such and such's name or number?" I like to reach out to them and tell them I'm enjoying the class. And so that's encouraging. Those that are watching, love for you to be a part of one of these groups in person, whether it be on Wednesday mornings, Wednesday nights, or on Sundays. And we'd love for you to do that. We are moving into the another miracle day. I was thinking of the 4 types of miracles that we're covering. I just mentioned a moment ago about the miracle that we're discussing today being a sandwich miracle. In other words, coming in between the beginning of another miracle and the end of that particular miracle. It's the miracle of the healing of the issue of blood. Jairus' daughter had a need, and Jesus had been approached, and he was going to take care of that. While he's doing that, this woman interrupts the situation, and then he takes care of her, and then he finishes up with Jairus' daughter. But what was the story on Jairus' daughter? We haven't got there yet. Does anybody remember what her issue was? Huh? She is dying. Matter of fact, she's not in the same category of miracles that we're studying about today, right? There's 4 types of categories of miracles, of the 33 that Jesus discussed. Remember what they are? The restoring of health. That's where we're at now, all right? Those that are sick and the blind, the ruling of nature. That would be the water to wine, the fish, the coin in the fish's mouth, the winds to stop blowing, that sort of thing. And then the raising of the dead, which is where we'll get to in Jairus' daughter, and then the removal of demons. And so we haven't got to either one of those 2 categories as of yet. Let's take a look at our text in Matthew 9. You have them. No, you don't. For some reason, they're not on your notes there. That is unfortunate. That's my fault, too. Matthew 9, you can write these down because you'd want these. Matthew 9, verses 20 through 22. There's only 3 verses in Matthew that we read about in this miracle. And then there's Mark chapter 5, and that's verses 25 through 34. So Matthew 9, 20 through 22, Mark 5, 25 to 34, and then in Luke 8, there's 5 verses there, verses 43 to 48. Luke 8, 43 to 48. Let's read those 3 accounts. Not a lot of verses concerning this particular miracle, but let's read them and kind of get the gist of what we're going into here. Matthew 9, verse number 20. Behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. Talking about Jesus. For she said within herself, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. But Jesus turned him about when he saw her, and he said, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And the woman was made whole from that hour. All right, so that's Matthew's account. Flip over to Mark's account. And obviously we're going to discuss this here in just a moment, some of the differences and some of the similarities. Mark 5, verse number 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. When she heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. All right? Now, let's go to Luke's account, Luke 8, verse number 43. And again, Luke's the physician, right? He's the doctor. This is of interest to him. This is in his wheelhouse. Verse 43, and he says, verse 43, and a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood stanched. And Jesus said, who touched me? When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And Jesus said, somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling and falling down before him. She declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said unto her, Daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace. So there's the three particular accounts in the Gospels there. What did you see? What did you hear? Stuck out to you there? Anything unusual other than a woman with an issue of blood for 12 years being healed? Her faith. Okay. True that. Mom went there this week. Yesterday, I think she had a consultation. And, I think they charge just as much as a consultation as they do to do the cutting or whatever it is that they're going to do. So it's kind of just another way to get another chunk of change, right? To spend all you've had. Something else? Anything of interest? Anything kind of popped out at you there? No, he did not have to do that healing. It was a little different type of a healing, wasn't it? In what way?
There was no touching. There was no laying on of hands. There was no oil. There was just her faith.
Almost inadvertent healing, right? Yeah.
But Jesus knows our needs and our wants.
That's right. He does. But he knew the needs of everybody in that crowd that day, right? Why didn't he heal all of them at the same? I mean, why didn't he do everybody that way?
They didn't show the faith.
Okay. Okay. Miss Joanne, I think you were fixing to say something.
I was just going to say that he didn't do it for his glory like he had done for some of the others.
Okay. Yeah. To present himself as the Son of God. Okay. All right. Good. Anything else sticking out at you?
Well, Matthew did not mention the fact that he questioned who touched me. I
Yeah.
felt the virtue
Mm-hmm.
left me.
Yeah.
Where Mark and Luke both did.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt's just like, he turned around and talked to the lady, right? Yeah. Mark and Luke were like, well, he asked us, and we're like, we didn't know who it was. And because so many, he was being thronged with people. And Matthew just now Matthew was a what? By trade. His X's and O's, right? Zeros and dollar signs. He's an accountant, right? So he's just kind of to the, I had a meeting with an accountant the other day. He may be watching. Every accountant, but the one I talked to yesterday they're not always like super creative, right? Or full of lies. They're just kind of like to the point, right? Here we are. It's about the bottom line here, right? And so Matt just doesn't kind of beat around the bush. He just says, here it was. Jesus turned around, there she was. And just the facts, ma'am, right? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Yeah, which is interesting. We didn't read the verse prior to these accounts, any of the accounts. But the daughter of Jairus' daughter, does anybody know how old she was?
12.
Mm-hmm. So we'll get to that a little bit as well. Okay, anything else stick out? The faith, we see that not all the details were there. Okay, let's go ahead and move into it then. You've got your notes there. And if you do not have notes and you're watching online and you would like to get those, you can call the church office at 770-466-4040 and ask them to send you a PDF version of that, and I will try to make sure we get the text on there. That was an oversight on my part, and we'll get you that sent out, emailed to you if you'd like to do that. All right? So the miracle, like I said earlier, is sandwiched between two halves of another miracle, the one of Jairus' daughter that we're going to get to a little bit later on. And the miracle concerned that it's sandwiched into is the one of Jairus' daughter. Again, we're going to study that a little bit later. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and this was something of interest to me, they all presented the miracles in the same way. Okay? You have two miracles going on here. The healing of, or restoring of, or raising of the dead of Jairus' daughter, and then you got the healing of this issue of blood. If I'm writing the account, I'm probably going to say, well, there was this woman, she was healed with blood, and then there was this other daughter here. They, by divine inspiration, right, they write it the same way. Hey, the miracle of the healing of the woman interrupts the miracle of the healing of, or the restoring of Jairus' daughter back to life, all right? And the interruption here of the miracle of raising Jairus' daughter from the dead, that would be a real test to Jairus. We haven't got there yet, but he was also a man of means, and oftentimes, people of means and of rank, they don't like to have, they don't like to stand in line, do they? They don't like to be put on hold. They don't like the interruption right here, and perhaps it would have been a test of patience for him when we're encountered with serious problems. By the way, was his daughter about to die a pretty serious problem? And then you've got somebody over here with a cut, for lack of better, she's bleeding, right? It's a big deal, but bleeding, she's had it for 12 years versus a 12-year-old girl about to die. Which one of y'all think is more important? Well, to Jairus, it's his daughter, right? The woman, she's desperate, as we're going to get to, and so she's not trying to keep him from going to heal or to raise Jairus' daughter from the dead. She doesn't know about what's going on. She doesn't know what's going on in her life. So many times we don't see other people's problems because we're so focused on ours, right? Our surgery, our procedure, our diagnosis. And we don't like interruptions for that, and I would be very upset if I'm there at the hospital in the emergency room and one of my children is in desperate need of a doctor's help, and on the way by, someone is coughing and hacking and saying, "Doctor, I've had this cough for like 3 weeks. Can you do something?" He's like, "Yeah, let me take a look at this right here. Nurse, I'd be like, "Dude, are you serious? Get to my daughter," right? And so you have to assume that Jairus has to be somewhat feeling like that. But, sometimes God allows interruptions to help us grow in character by teaching us unselfishness. And furthermore, as in Jairus' case right here, the interruption would only have served to encourage him, would it not? And why would I say that? Why would I say the interruption of this woman with the issue of blood being healed would encourage Jairus at a point when he felt like his daughter or his daughter is dying? Yeah. Oh. Boom. Exactly. There you go. So he's there to think, that could have been like, okay, maybe this guy can do what he said, what I've heard about him doing, right? So his lack of patience perhaps could have been encouraged by, okay, came to the right guy this time, right? I'm here at the right time at the right time. So I believe it would bolster his faith, which would help him overcome the news that he would receive after this miracle. At this point, Jairus did not know that his daughter had died. He just knew she was nigh unto death. This miracle happens, and then he finds out his daughter, is already dead. And so this would encourage him. I saw Jesus doing a miracle. Perhaps he can do the same thing. And so it's interesting to note, though, that these two miracles are not only tied together by their occurrence, but also with the number 12. I think we mentioned that a moment ago. The daughter of Jairus' daughter was sick, and she was 12 years old, according to Luke, that died, all right? The woman in our text here with this issue of blood had been sick for 12 years. And so one had a sickness for 12 years, the other had sickness only in her 12th year, but both of them needed Christ, right? Both of them needed the healing touch of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so it is with salvation. It makes no difference how long somebody's been a sinner, right? We still need Christ. And Christ can save anybody regardless of how long they've been infected with the problem and the disease of sin, right? So to study the miracle out of this bleeding of the woman, there are four main four main headings there you're going to get. Roman numeral 1 we're going to talk about now is talking about the condition for that miracle. The condition for, we're going to talk about the coming for it, the cure in it, and the confession after it, all right? And I will repeat those as we go through, but not now. Number 1, the condition of the miracle. We see that this woman had a female problem with her menstruation, all right? It's her cycle issue. That is based on every interpretation and translation of the Greek here is referring to a woman's health issues. Let's look at the description of her condition here, letter A there in your notes. The word, Matthew 9:20 says, "And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years. The words translated issue of blood here in Matthew and the Greek word for which we get our English word hemorrhage is the same thing, all right? So the word translated issue of blood in Mark and Luke, they are two different Greek words. The first word, issue, means flowing, all right? And the other word, blood, it literally means blood. So the descriptions of the problem are the same in all three Gospels, even though they use different words. Remember, I've taught you about this, right? How it can be maybe two different English words, but it's really derived from the same Greek word. Does that make sense, right? I've given you a lot of illustrations about that. We could use the word affection and the word love, getting the same point across, but it's two English words, and sometimes they can have their derivation or their root from Greek or Latin or whatever. So they all say the woman had a serious bleeding problem with her menstruation, all right? The problem would make life miserable here for her, as one could easily understand. Without modern day hygienic helps, can you imagine that type of an issue and having to deal with that? You didn't have washing and dryers, right? And you didn't have the pharmacy, and you don't have all these things that could assist in that area, and so difficult by far greater stretches than it would be today back in her day. Later we're going to see the bleeding problem not only caused her some physical misery, but also resulted in a good deal of social and spiritual misery as well. We're going to get to that. Let's talk about the duration then of her condition. All right, we talked about the description of it and how it's described. Ryle says this about the duration: 12 long, weary years had been spent in battling with the disease, and relief seemed no nearer than at first. As we've already noted briefly here, the woman had been experiencing this problem for 12 years, according to Matthew's account in Matthew 9:20. So not only would the disease be wasting her body, it would also be wearying her spirit, all right? Oftentimes, even for us, misery from a problem becomes greater when the problem stays with us for a greater length of time, doesn't it? What sometimes is not that big of a deal, when it just kind of hangs on and hangs on and hangs on, and all of a sudden it gets like, this is getting old. This is wearing on me. No, it's not that big of a deal, but my goodness, when am I ever going to get any relief out of this? And so that's kind of what's going on with this lady right here. Pain is hard to bear, even only for an instant, but when it lingers on and on indefinitely, it becomes a much more greater burden to bear. And that's why so many people turn to prescription drugs or other drugs to try to numb the pain that they've been suffering for so long. The anguish not only is physical, but also becomes mental, right? And suffering lingers there. But we know the length of the problem doesn't limit the ability of Christ, right, to heal and to take care of, and that's what we see right here. Same is true regarding sin. Christ can easily save a young person just as he can an older person, right? Does not matter. Some people think that when they get up in years, they have sinned too much to get saved. And they've been through too much, and you just don't know what I've been through, what I've been involved in. Doesn't matter to Christ. Doesn't matter in salvation, right? The blood of Christ can heal the old sinner or just the young child who doesn't have the vast amount of gross sins maybe as an older person would. So the blood of Jesus Christ is a powerful detergent, right, that can wash any sin away. So the duration of her condition, notice then the decline in that. And Mark's account says she was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. The woman's problem kept getting worse. There was no end in sight. It wasn't like she had something taken care of it and now it's came back. What a discouragement this would be. 12 years of having this. There was no sign of improvement. There was only evidence that things were getting worse. And what this did was forecasted death, right? She was slowly dying. And sin is like this disease, only in the fact that it only makes matters worse and worse. Sin never improves a person. Sin never makes a person better. It just continues to decline, right? It's a perfect illustration of this, and it only makes the person worse and worse. And sin eventually kills us, right? And that's what Paul writes in Ephesians. He says the sinner is dead in trespasses and sins, right? So the continual decline and the worsening of this woman's hemorrhaging gives us another situation where the power of Christ will be able to shine through in a glorious manner, and he's able to glorify himself as the Son of God. As in previous miracles right here, Christ delights in doing the impossible. You know, he wants us to know that it's him that is performing. He's the only one that has the power and the ability to do that. And taking the most difficult of cases and solving them, we see that. So the details of this bleeding certainly puts this case in the category of difficult cases. Again, for 12 years. It's a tailor-made miracle case for Jesus Christ here. Christ is not limited by how difficult the situation is, and he's not restricted just to easy cases. He has the power to overcome, the worst of our situations. I was talking to somebody last week, and they're saying, I'm so glad we're going through these miracles, or I'm learning about the miracle of Jesus because we need a miracle in our life. And you get to a point in your life where you have certain times where you're like, we need a miracle. Other times, you don't. I mean, there may be things that you would like to have, but it'd take a miracle to get them done, right? Or we'd like for it to work out, but that'd be a miracle if it worked out. But there are other times where you're like, she's sick or he's sick. We need a miracle. We need a healing touch of God. And it's nice to be able to know that Christ, regardless of those situations, can move in. And this woman was telling me, I just need to be reminded once again that God's still in the miracle performing business. And he is, same God, right, that we serve. She had tried other measures prior to meeting Jesus, but that only led to other issues. Look at letter D then. We'll see those doctors that were in her condition. The woman, not surprisingly, went to doctors to try to remedy her case. It wasn't like she was trying to do this alone. 12 years was enough. And by the way, is there anything wrong with going to doctors? How many of y'all have a doctor's appointment this week or have already had one? Raise your hand. Come on. Raise your hand. If you've already had one, you're going one this week. All right? All right. How about next week? The other half of you, all right? How the week before? Okay. So we're going to go to doctors, right? We are. There's nothing wrong with that. But this one right here did not have very good experience with the doctors. Has anybody had that kind of situation? Has anybody ever gone to a doctor and you're like, this guy's not helping me. We have got to find somebody else. Raise your hand. Okay, everybody. Okay, sure. I haven't got there yet. We've had the doctors, but it's kind of like, I moved from a doctor because we move, or he moves his practice or whatever. but I haven't had any major health issues where I don't feel like the doctor's helping. That would be very, very fun. Now, I've heard of it, seen it, dealt with it many times with many people in here and say, yeah, we've been going to the doctor for 5 years, and we're still suffering with it, right? We see this fact then when we know 4 different things about the doctors in her case that we read from this text. We'll talk about the number of doctors, all right, first of all. Mark tells us that she had gone to many physicians, all right? This wasn't just a one and done type of deal. At the time of the writing here, she had gone to a lot of them. She had got more than one second opinion, all right? She got many opinions and perhaps many treatments to doctors she trusts, all right? Many today can identify with that, all right? Because when we have a problem or a situation develops in our life, and a doctor doesn't have a remedy for it, are we going to hang around and let him practice on us? Some of us have to, right? That's why they do call it a practice, right? Because they're just practicing on us. That's exactly what it is. That's the truth, right? But if someone's not helping you, you're not going to hang around there and say, yeah, he hasn't really done anything for me, but I like him. He's a nice guy. That's not going to work, right? It might work for you, but it's not going to work for your wife, You may like the guy, but if he ain't getting it done for you guys, mama's going to move you along, right? Get a second opinion here and get a different type of a treatment. And the case illustrates the frustration of the sinner who doesn't seek the great physician, right? Burdened and shackled with our sin problems, we try a lot of different remedies for our sins, don't we? Oh, we'll do this. We'll try that. As a matter of fact, when we have some issues in our life, we'll head to that psychologist or that psychiatrist and think, I'm having issues here, struggling with this depression, struggling with this, and there are times and places for different types of doctors. But so many times our issues are sin problems. We don't want to count it. We don't want to chalk it up to that. But yet we'll go and we'll think, well, I just need to talk to somebody and share how I'm feeling, and maybe they can help me. Maybe they can prescribe me something to help me not think about it. And that's kind of how it goes, right? Well, you're a little depressed. We give you some antidepressants here. And you're a little stressed here. We're going to give you a little of this. And this, if you're not so stressed and you weren't feeling so down, and you would feel better about it, you'll be able to be a little more active. And so we buy into all these things. But if it's sin that's causing the situations in our life, we're running from God, we're not spending time with Him, and we're involved in some sort of, those things, doctors aren't going to help. They're just going to frustrate, right? And the sinner will oftentimes spend a whole lot of money. I've had people come and bring themselves or bring a child to me and say, we've been going to this counselor now for a little about a year and a half, and this doesn't seem to be working. Thought maybe what we have to lose. We'll let you try it, preacher. Type of a thing, right? And not that I don't have any magic touch or anything like that, but I can help with issues, especially when a lot of it is dealt upon by sin or sinful actions, by the person who's having the situations or those imposing upon them. And just going and getting another opinion and another prescription, oftentimes it just costs us a whole lot of money, and when we really need to go to Christ and let Him deal with some of those things. And I'm not belittling some of those other doctors, other types of practices there, but we put a lot of credence in a lot of different ones. I'm not a licensed counselor. I've had licensing. I have counseling classes. I've taken courses. I've been tutored. I've mentored under a really good counselor. But I do counsel a lot, and I do have a lot of counseling that I do emotionally and spiritually and mentally and that sort of thing. But I tell everybody that comes in, I said, it's biblically based. I said, I'm not going to, if it comes to a point where I feel like there's some medication that needs to be involved, then at that point, then I refer them to someone or something else. That's not under my job description there, and I'm not able to do that. But many times, many times it's not necessary to go that next step, because all of a sudden we start peeling back some things, and we realize some of the issues that we're dealing with here is something that transpired 7 years ago or 13 years ago, and that abuse or whatever it was has overtaken them now to a point of grief or depression. So we start peeling those layers back, and we start learning how to gain ground back that the devil has won in our lives. And that's a very painful process. When I'm counseling people, the second session, so if I'm different types of counseling, right? Premarital or marital counseling, a lot of that's different. But I'm dealing with things like perhaps infidelity in a marriage, or physical, emotional, verbal, sexual abuse. All those are different types of counseling, and oftentimes the victim or the one that's been betrayed in a relationship or a child or whatever it is, there's a shutdown in what has transpired in their life. It's amazing. I'll be working with 25, 26-year-olds and trying to get through some situations in their marriage, and they're acting like 15, 16-year-olds. We can't even go to the restaurant. He's looking at all the girls, and all the girls are looking and talking to him, and he says he's not flirting. I don't know really he is, but he seems like he is to me. I mean, it's just like, I'm like, and I was like, man, it's like high school. What's going on here, We start peeling that things back. All of a sudden we start realizing, and that usually doesn't happen until the second or third session, when I have them discuss some hurts and betrayals that they've had in the past, some types of crises in their life. Many times, if a person loses someone, the death maybe of a parent at a young age, or parents go through a divorce, or if they were a victim of some type of molestation, maybe a friend took their life in a suicide situation, oftentimes a person will shut down emotionally around that age frame and never mature much beyond that. And when I began to look at this, and I realized, oh my goodness, she was 17 years old. She had an uncle that that abused her in various ways, and no wonder emotionally she is not much older, not much more mature than a 17, 18-year-old girl is, even though she may be 29 years old now. And you have to start kind of going back. You have to start realizing, all right, we got to go back here and gain back that ground that the devil's won in her life all these years. And that's a difficult process to do, because you have to face the past. I preached about that, 2 weeks ago, when it comes to being bold. Sometimes we got to face the past in order to move on. And that's part of what I'm talking about right there. So I'm not belittling the need for the doctors, but I also understand oftentimes, it's the forgiveness that God can give us, and He can help us choose to forgive others. So many issues that people deal with because they've been hurt by somebody and they haven't been able to forgive them. And they say, well, I've forgiven. That was years ago. I don't even think about it anymore. Well, if it came to your mind that quick when I was asking about it, there's something there. I never think about it. Oftentimes, just because it doesn't, you don't think it affects you anymore, or you don't think about it, doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't there. And I used to think that was not true. I used to think, okay, that's a crutch. And I started realizing as I got older and started counseling people, and that is emotionally, you can get shut down right there. And if you don't, by the way, what I say, forgiveness is a what? A choice, right? Nobody can earn our forgiveness. Whether it was a previous spouse or whether it was a child, they can get back on the straight and narrow. But they'll never get our forgiveness by earning it, by being a good person anymore, unless we choose to forgive them, right? And it's not like you can earn it back. So anyway, I kind of got off the subject there a little bit, but this woman had gone to a lot of doctors, had nothing to show for it other than an empty bank account. And so many times we do the same thing. We're trying to find out a remedy for the sin in our life, and we go to all sorts of things other than going to the one who can help us. So that was the number of doctors. Look at the suffering from the doctors. You don't have a point here, just some notes here. She suffered many things of many physicians. is what Mark tells us in his account, verse 26. But so not only did the doctors not help her, but they caused her much suffering as well. Vincent tells us that the prescription, this is interesting. I'm going to read this to you, and you're going to like, what? There's a prescription found in the Talmud for the medical treatment of this woman's disease, which would cause her much suffering in and of itself. Just the treatment itself is going to cause her. Listen to what he quotes the prescription that was given for a woman in this situation. Take the gum of Alexandria, the weight of a zuzi, this is a fractional silver coin, of a loom, the same, of crocus, the same. Let them be bruised together and given in wine to the woman that has an issue of blood. If this does not benefit her, take of Persian onions, 3 logs or pints, boil them in wine and give her to drink, and say, arise from thy flux, which is a heavy flow of blood. If this does not cure her, set her in a place where 2 ways meet, like at a crossroads, and let her hold a cup of wine in her right hand, and let someone come behind and frighten her, and say, arise from thy flux. But if that do no good, take a handful of cumin, a kind of fennel, a handful of crocus, and a handful of fenugreek, another kind of fennel. Let these be boiled in wine, and give them to her to drink, and say, arise from thy flux. Vincent then says that if these prescriptions did not work, the Talmud had more, and he quotes one of them as follows. Let them dig 7 ditches, in which let them burn some cuttings of vines, not yet 4 years old. Let her take in her hand a cup of wine, and let them lead her away from this ditch, and make her sit down over that. And let them remove her from that, and make her sit down over another, saying to her at each remove, arise from thy flux. So that was the prescription, right? Go boil this, drink this, stand here, do this, do that. No wonder the woman suffered and grew worse, right? She wasn't getting any better when having prescriptions like this. The concoctions that she would drink would probably add more problems to her than her bleeding problem had in the first place. One thing, it ruined her stomach based on some of the chemicals that they said, to mix right here and some of the things. And we laugh at these silly, harsh, so-called remedies, right? And we think, good night, that was crazy for them to think that right there. But perhaps in the years to come, if the Lord were to tarry, perhaps someone would look back and say, can you believe they were using chemotherapy and radiation? I mean, it destroyed their bodies, right? Why would they think that would do that? Why didn't they do, whatever it is they have, at that time? You understand where I'm going with that? So we think it's kind of silly, but perhaps that might be the case, all right? The supposed cure is worse than the curse. And how many times have people say, I'm not going through radiation anymore, or I'm not doing chemo anymore? It's just, it makes me worse than the cancer, and I just assume die of the cancer than go through this so I can at least enjoy my family. So I had a woman one day do that, call me in, and she was on dialysis, no problems other than, kidney issues. She had to go to dialysis regularly in order to stay alive. Healthy, other than that. She said, I'm done. I'm not going to do dialysis anymore. She was probably mid-60s, maybe early 70s. I don't know exactly how old she was. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. Really? Yep, I'm through. We talked about salvation. She was saved. She knew she was saved. And I'm sitting on the hospital bed talking to her like you and I are talking right now. About a week later, she was in glory. She decided she wasn't going to go through that anymore. She didn't want to go through that, put her body through that. And so perhaps that's what we may be thinking down the road. Notice also the expense then of the doctors. It says the woman, and Mark said, spent all that she had. So adding to the woman's physical woes here was the fact that her finances were completely depleted as a result of her sickness. All right? Many physicians means many bills. Okay? Y'all understand that, right? And so y'all know it more than I do, right? And it ruined her financially. There was nothing left. The Bible said she had spent all her money. She didn't have anything else. They didn't have health care back in the day, right? You could only go to so many doctors that would try to help you out so much. And it's bad enough to have a serious health problems, but now to have a serious financial problem on top of that, it's kind of like pouring salt in the wound. And so this is the woman's condition. This is the situation that she finds herself in, all right? And this illustrates, again, the problem of sin. It's expensive. Society is impoverished by sin. I don't know what it costs for a pack of cigarettes today. What does it cost? Anybody know?
$8.40
How much?
$8.40 a pack.
A pack. I knew it had gone up. $8.40. Are you smoking the cheap ones too, or is that just the expensive?
I know that because my grandson had stopped by a pack.
$8.40.
And I told him, I said, it's time to quit.
Been time, right? Think about that. Now, any of you guys smoked back in the day? What was the cheapest you ever bought a pack of cigarettes for?
10 cents a pack.
Wow, that was a way long time ago. 20 cents a pack. All right, when you quit, how much did it cost? Or, I mean, $8.40? I mean, I don't know. They didn't get that, did they? Y'all remember about how much it was when you?
$2 a pack.
$2 a pack?
It was after
Yeah.
I got out of service years ago.
Yeah, don't know. Yeah. $8. Y'all, that's you can buy lunch at Zaxby's for a pack of smokes. Tell me that's not expensive. How many packs are in a carton?
10.
So I know that you get a little bit of a break when you buy it by the carton, I guess. So, but still, $80. And look, I know 2 packs a day for some wasn't. You were at 3 packs a day. 2.5 packs a day. That's pretty expensive. Hey, there's a whole lot you can do. Think about it. 2.5 packs a day. I mean, that's $15-16 a day. Multiply that times a week.
That's about $20,000 a year.
So you got a new car almost. You can afford a new car payment for what you did now, right? So that burns a lot of a person's income. Is that right? Now I'm not getting into the debate of tobacco being a sin or whatever, but that there are some sinful habits that come along with that. That's a lot of phrase. Alcohol, gambling, abortion. I mean, immorality. Those aren't cheap either, right? And do what? Yeah, exactly. Have to replace them. Yeah, and furniture and everything else. $8 a box started looking cheap.
That's that is from experience.
Yeah. Those are experience expenses, right?
Not to mention the health issue.
True. Yeah. That's just So the prodigal son says wasted his substance, right? On righteous living. It said he spent all in Luke 15 as well. So on the pleasure of sin, but he's not alone. Sin's very expensive. It depletes one's silver, but also costs a man's soul if he doesn't come to Christ. We're talking about sin, right? So then let's look at the failures of the doctors right quick. We'll finish up here today under letter D here. The failures of the doctors there. We're still under D. The woman says that spent all that she had on the physicians and was nothing bettered. So she went from doctor to doctor, but nobody was able to help her. I have to assume that they did make sure she paid them. Right? Like the world of sin seems so promising. Right? When you go talk to a doctor, I mean, usually they're going to say, "Oh yeah, we take care of this. No big deal. Little pre-op here. We'll go in. We'll shave off a little bit here. You got it. No big deal. And do it 12 times a week." Right? Great.
I had a doctor come in after he did an ablation. I got that fixed. The next day it happened again. He came in and said, "Well, I don't know, what did you do?" I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
I said, "What did you do or not do?"
Yeah.
So he went back in and did it again.
Yeah. Did that one work?
Nope.
Yeah.
Had 3 more after that.
Let me ask you a quick question here. Same doctor?
Same doctor.
Are you still with the same doctor?
Haven't seen him in almost 5 years since.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right. Yeah. So maybe it was something you did.
No, it wasn't. But he actually fixed it. The same doctor actually fixed it the last time.
Yeah, practice makes perfect, I guess, right? I'm willing to, not willing to let him go through that many times. I mean, you kind of into it when you got $1 to figure, though, right? I mean, it's kind of like you kind of catch-22 sometimes.
It's catch-22 on mine because either they fix it or you die.
Yeah.
So you got to stay with who you dance with, the one that brung you.
That's the one that brought you. Yeah, unless she stepped out on you twice at the punch bowl. You know what I'm saying? Then I'm leaving her. Anyway, all right. So, but it's like the world of sin. Sin seems so promising. All sorts of nice things appear to be ours if we'd only give up our family. And give up your morality. Give up your marriage. I promise you it'll work out. You'll never look back, right? I've had a man tell me one time he had an affair. He says, Derek, I've crawled out on this limb. He says, I'm going to go all the way to the edge, and if it falls off and breaks, so be it. And it broke. It broke. And I'm not sure now how many marriages that has taken now. But you would think, man, shame on me, right? But we'll discover sin doesn't keep its word. It's fun for a season, right? After you paid the price of your morals and money and anything else, sin's still going to leave us holding an empty bag, isn't it? Every single time. It's like a hole in that bag. It just keeps dripping out right there. And we'll discover that the promises were nothing but an empty mirage, all right? Because sin will not satisfy. Never does. Never has. Never will. All right, there is a fifth thing about condition, but we're not going to get there today, and that would be the disgrace in that. So let me make a note right here so I won't forget. And those that are watching online, thank you so much for watching today. I'd love to have you in person when you're able to do that, all right? And God bless you. We hope that was an encouragement to you tonight. You may want to know more information. Maybe you have some questions. Maybe you'd like to pray with somebody and talk to somebody about some spiritual matters in your life. We have a pastoral care line, and we would love for you to be able to call. We have pastors standing by right now to be able to take those calls and assist you. We also have Wednesday night program for our teens as well as our young people. We have an Awana program here, and perhaps you or someone you know might like to be a part of that. You can find this and a whole lot more information on our website, VictoryBaptist.Church. God bless you and have a great evening.